Hi, I'm Debbie Dittrick with Following Him, and I'm back with more truth from God's Word. Today we are in lesson 15 of spiritual warfare, and we're going to talk about the helmet of salvation. For time's sake, I'm not going to read our entire passage, but you might want to go back and do that yourself. We are in Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 17. So we have been talking about this armor. It is the power of God. We are fighting a battle, a hand-to-hand struggle with forces of wickedness and amazing creatures, actually, and they're evil. But we have God's armor and God's strength so that we can stand firm and so that we can resist the enemy. I don't know if you figured it out yet, but all of these pieces of armor work together. We rarely use just one and not the other. They really are a combo, if you will. And so our helmet today, we're going to talk about that, but actually when we use our helmet, we're actually using really all the armor. So let's get started right away. Verse 17 says, take up the helmet of salvation. And Dr. Thomas Constable said this about the helmet. This salvation is evidently similar to a helmet because deliverance involves a mental choice. It's a helmet because there's something mentally going on that protects you, namely trust in God rather than self and obedience to Him. Confidence in God becomes our salvation and thus protects our thinking while we are under attack. Boy, if you've learned anything in these lessons, you have learned it is all in our minds. Not like it's fake, all in your mind. It is a real battle going on in your mind. The enemy speaks into our mind, and we do battle in our thoughts, with God's word, with God's truth. And so that's where our power comes from. We could sum this up by saying faith in God is our salvation, and our helmet is actually our salvation and our protection in any attack. The helmet is literally our faith in God that He will deliver us, that His word is powerful, and that He will protect us. I want to talk about a powerful verse that talks about our mind and this battle and how it applies to our helmet. It is 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 5. Let me read it. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. In other words, we don't do anything in our own strength. It's nothing that we come up with. It's not our words or our armor. It is God's armor and God's word that is the power here, not us. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but divinely powerful for the destruction of fortresses. We are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. This is just huge for us. This is how we use our helmet, literally taking captive every single thought that comes into our minds. We want all of our thoughts to be aligned with God's word and God's will. So the thought comes in and we hold it up to the light, so to speak, and ask ourselves some questions. Wait a minute. Is this what God's word says, or is it not what God's word says? Because otherwise, it's out of here. It is my prisoner. I'm taking it captive. It is not going to be allowed to roam around in my mind, taking me as its prisoner. I'm taking it as my prisoner. Does that make sense? The word is our guide, not only in what we do, but also in what we think. And this is so huge because that's how the enemy attacks us, is by putting thoughts into our mind. So we've got to literally analyze all the thoughts that come into our mind. Remember, the armor is real. We are real women with real lives and real issues to deal with. All of this is practical. It's literally real. It's not passive at all. It is literally something we do. It's not imaginary. So I want to give you an example from my own life of how I used not only the helmet, but my truth and my breastplate of righteousness and the shield of faith to go through an excruciating trial about 8 years ago. I'm not going to give you names or specific situations because it involves a lot of people, a multitude of people in my family and some not in my family. And so they would each have their own story to tell about this situation. So no details, but let me just tell you, it was literally one of the worst periods of my life. Fear and confusion and anger would hit me every day, all day. No exaggeration, from the moment I woke up until the second I went to bed. And then I would usually dream about it and wake up in the middle of the night. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day was dealing with this situation and the people involved. It was like an all-out assault in my mind every day, all day. And I am not exaggerating. My first response, by the way, was to pray and ask God to take me home. I'm a quitter. You just got to know that about me. I don't know what you think about me. I think some people think, oh, she's so strong. No, not really. I'm extremely weak and I'm extremely insecure and I'm a quitter. My first response is I just want to quit. I don't like it when it gets hard. I hate saying that about myself, but it's the truth. But God has changed me. God's word has changed me. And you know what? I'm a fighter when it comes to God's word. I stand on it. I've learned to do that. And I'm strong in God's word and in my faith now. But basically, deep down, I'm a quitter apart from God and how he's changed me. And so my first response to this trial was, Lord, take me home. I don't want to see this. There is absolutely no way this is going to end well for lots of people. And I don't want to see the fallout from it. Just take me home. I guess I battled with that. It was less than a week, and that's actually a short period of time for me because I can battle with things for months or years, to be honest with you. But within the week, I decided that I was going to go through this trial and face this trial by faith in God, believing that he had a plan and that he had a purpose and that his will was perfect. Despite what I saw, despite what I felt, I decided to believe him and put literally all of my faith in him and in his word and in his promises. And remember, we've talked about that a lot. Faith is a decision. It is not a feeling. Trust me, if it was on feelings during that period of time specifically, I would have had zero faith because I was overwhelmed with fear, anxiety, and literally anger. So we can literally make a decision to trust God through tears, through anxiety, and even through gritted teeth and hatred and anger sometimes. Some of those days I would wake up and I would think the thought, and honestly, I think it was an attack from the enemy. Nothing good can come from this. And so I immediately, like I said in the last lesson, like Doc Holliday, he drew his weapon. I drew out the truth of God and I put my helmet on and I took that thought captive, and I would immediately respond back. My God is able to do more than I ever asked for or imagined in this situation. And you know what? My God causes all things to work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Another thought might be, this is going to destroy those you love. And I just believe in telling the truth to myself. I don't like to lie to myself, and I certainly don't like others to lie to me. So when I think those thoughts, nothing good could come of this, I just say the truth. That's true. Nothing good might come for those that I love out of this, but that's not God's plan. God's plan is to cause all of this to work together for good. So I am going to let him do that in me. I'm going to put all of my faith in him. I'm going to endure through this trial. I'm going to protect all of my thoughts and my mind by taking all of my thoughts captive. And so I'm going to let God do something in me that will bring about good. They have that same opportunity. The people I love have the same opportunity. God will give them that opportunity. And I'm going to pray that they are strengthened so they will also take all of their thoughts captive, that they will put all of their faith in God so that something good will come out of them, out of this for them. So Another thought that would come into my mind is, you can't handle that. To which I would respond, you know what? That's absolutely right. I can't. Not only that, I don't want to, but I would raise my little shield of faith and I would take that thought captive and I would say, you know what? I can do this through Christ. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And in my weakness, his power is perfected. So I would literally, as each thought would come, I would respond to it with a truth. I took all of my thoughts captive. I literally used my helmet all day long. Does that make sense? And God did protect me. God absolutely protected me. The enemy never let up, but I never let up either. I stood firm in my faith. I endured through the trial, and I would not let go of my faith no matter what. I decided I want to be part of God's big plan. I know he has a perfect will here, and I want to be part of it, even if I die and never see any good come out of this. I want to be a woman who put all of my faith in God and stood firm, and I did. The Lord gave me strength to do that. And I'm telling you something, he did amazing things in that trial. Amazing things. Luke 8:15 says that we become fruitful in trials, especially when we hold on to the truth. It says when you hold on to God's word, that it bears fruit. In other words, when I believe God's word and then I act on it, that's bearing fruit. And so it was the hardest time of my life, but it was the greatest time of my life. And let me tell you something, it was the most fruitful time of my life. And the fruit that was born back 8 years ago is still bearing fruit today in literally amazing ways. And I would love to give you more details, but this has been something that's been actively going on since 8 years ago, because God's word is that way. It is living and it's active, and some of the people involved grab hold of God's word with faith, and it's still bearing fruit even unto this day. Amazing things are happening. Don't ever underestimate what God can do in your greatest trial. You need your shield of faith. You need your helmet. You need your belt of truth. And you're going to need your sword, which we're going to talk about in our next lesson. But you need to know something. God always wants to build you up in a trial, but the enemy always wants to destroy you in a trial, period. That's his one goal, period. In Luke 8:13 says this. Remember, Luke 8:15 says, if you hold on to the word, you will bear fruit and you will please God. 8:13 says that some people hear the word, but they have no firm root. That means no faith, no ability to hold on to it. So in time of a tribulation or a trial or a temptation, they fall away. And that word fall away means become offended or stumble and trip and fall down, and they don't get back up. Let me tell you something. We don't get good teaching about trials and tribulations today. And so many believe the lie that God does not intend for us to have hard times. He doesn't intend for us to struggle. He doesn't intend for us to get sick or to die. And my precious friend, God's word does not teach that. He does not teach that. In fact, Jesus said in John 16:33, these things I've spoken to you so that in me you may have peace. In this world, you will have tribulation. But take courage. I've overcome the world. The word tribulation means the pressures of a hostile and godless world. Let me repeat that. Tribulation means the pressures of a godless, hostile world. Don't you feel that every single day? That is coming from your enemy. You have tribulation almost every day. You feel the pressure of this godless, hostile world that we were in. But let me tell you something. If you don't understand God's teaching about trials and tribulations and temptations, then you're going to fall away in hard times because you'll be offended. You'll be confused. You'll become angry at God because he let this happen. I've heard women say that. I've called them when their loved ones died, or I've gone to visit them and they say, I am so angry with God. How could he let this happen to me? Why would he let this happen? I prayed, I believed, and he let this happen to me. Oh my gosh, my heart breaks for them. It's okay to be angry with God. That does happen when we suffer like that. It does happen, but we can still press on, even through tears, even through anger with God. But God, I feel angry, I feel confused, but I'm still going to believe you. But some don't do that. They've had such bad teaching, and they believed that things were always going to be good for them if they just had enough faith. And so when it doesn't happen, they are angry with God. They're angry with God. It's time to wake up. We are going to have trials and tribulations. We do have an enemy who wants to absolutely destroy us. And his greatest lie is, hey, you shouldn't have trials. If God was really good, he wouldn't let these things happen to him. And if you believe that lie and you don't stop it and take it captive with your helmet, then your conclusion will be in a trial when you have them, and you will have them, that God is not good. That God somehow failed you and let you down. And sweetheart, it isn't God that let you down. It is your teaching that let you down. It's not God who's bad. It's your teaching that is bad. Does that make sense? You will have hard times. You got to have a helmet on at all times so that you can take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, holding it up to the truth to see, is it true or is it a lie? And that's where you use your shield of faith. That's where you take that thought captive. That's where you put all of your faith in God's word, believing that what he said is true. And you hear the word, you believe the word, you say the word, and you hold on to the word, taking every thought captive. In other words, like taking ID at a bar, you're checking every thought to make sure it matches God's word. And otherwise you don't let it into your mind. Does that make sense? These are amazing truths that build us and transform us into women of faith. Women of faith. And God is going to reward you. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it's impossible to please him. We must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. My friend, if you are using your faith and using your armor and your shield and putting on your helmet, God is going to reward you when you endure believing in God's truth and in his word and in all of this glorious armor. There's more to come. It's my favorite part. The next lesson we will have is going to be about the sword of the Spirit. And I can't wait because I absolutely love God's word. So come back. There's more truth for us to learn about. And I don't want you to miss one single solitary lesson. So come back.